Hey everyone, in this video we'll continue our Django channels chat app by improving the styles and cleaning up the code for what we did in the previous video. We'll move all of our JavaScript into separate files and we'll create an external style sheet to make our application look a lot better. So let's go ahead and get started by going into our HTML files here and adding some divs and some classes to our HTML. So first here in our index.html, let's go ahead and wrap our input tags here in a div. And let's also first, I guess we'll go ahead and make this text right here. Let's make an H3. So we'll put an H3 tag right here. We'll put our closing tag, and we'll go ahead and put right there. We're going to put our H3 tag here in front. And then we're going to wrap our H3 and both our input tags inside of a div. So create a div here. And we'll grab both of these and we'll put them inside right there. And then on our H3 and our inputs, let's go ahead and add some classes. So on the H3, I'm going to add a class equaling to heading. And these will be classes that we'll add to our external style sheet here in a little bit once we create that. I'm just going to go ahead and set everything up first. So we'll create a class here on our input field, and we'll call this text input. And then on our button down here, I'll put a class and just set that equal to button. I'll go ahead and save that. And let's go ahead and add some things to our room.html as well. So on this file, I'm going to go ahead and first I'll put a container around our input fields. I'm going to put the same styles on our input field as well. So put a class equaling to text input. And then down here on our button, we'll put a class equaling to button. Just like that. Okay, and right now this all should still work just fine. Nothing should really change yet. I'm going to go ahead and move all of this JavaScript into their own files. And to do that, I'll need to set up static files. So inside of our settings.py, we'll go ahead and set up static. So we'll go here to our settings.py, and we'll come down here to the bottom. And we'll find where our static URL is. And below that, I'm going to go ahead and add static files, dirs, equals a list. And inside this list here, I'm going to go ahead and put base dir, a slash, and static. And so just in case this isn't familiar, base dir is defined up here, which is just the parent or the root of the project. And so we're taking our base dir and we're adding on slash static to that to create a path that's just in our root. We'll have a folder called static, and that's where we'll keep all of our static files. So we go ahead and create that right now. So I'll go to our root of the project, which should be right here. I'll create a new folder and I'll call it static. And now we'll put all of our static files inside of here. Go ahead and save that. And now let's go ahead and create our first file. So inside of here, I'll create a new file and I'll save this as index.js. And this will hold all of the index.html JavaScript that we have in our script tag right here. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab this, cut that out, come into the index.js and paste it right there. I'm going to go ahead and fix these indents too. And now with the script tag, I'm going to go ahead and put it on one line. And we'll add an src equals, and we can go ahead and load in our static files in here. Now we can put static, make sure you put our percent signs first. We can put static, and then in quotes we can put the name of the file. In this case, it's index.js. But right now this won't work because we need to load in the static tag. And so to do that, we'll go to the very top of our HTML. We'll add our normal Django template syntax here, and we'll do load static and save that. And now this should still work exactly the same. So let's go back here, reload the page. Let's go ahead, enter lobby, and it still takes us to our lobby. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for the room.html. So I'm going to go and create a file. I'm going to save it as room.js, and we'll move all of the JavaScript from this file into there. So we'll grab from here all the way down, just cut that out, and we'll paste it in here. And I'm gonna go ahead and fix the indents again. And that should be, we'll save that. And we'll jump back into our room.html, and we'll do the same thing here with the script tag. So first I'll go ahead and come up here, and I'll go ahead and load in static, load static. And down here, I'll add a src equals, and in quotes, we'll add our template syntax here again, and we'll do static. And this one's called room.js. Go ahead and save that. And now this should still work the same. If I go to the page here and I add a chat, it should still send the chat in just fine. So that's still working fine. And now that we have everything kind of cleaned up and moved around, we can go ahead and add some more changes to our HTML. And this will break the project for now, which is why I want to get that in first to make sure it was still working so we could test that. But right now, when we send a chat, we have this text area, this text field here that we put all of our chats in. And I don't think that looks very good. I think we better have a div where we could style it and add some colors and different fonts or whatever else to it. And so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this text field element here and replace it with just a div. And we'll, in our JavaScript, we'll append a new child element for each message to actually show the text for the message. Hopefully it makes sense. If not, we'll go through it here in a second. So to do this, I need to go ahead and make a change to the HTML. We have this text area right now, and I'm going to replace that with just a div that has the same ID of chat log. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this out and just delete it. Now above this div here with the container, I'm going to create another container, class equaling container. And inside of this container, I'm going to go ahead and put the chat log div. So I'll create a div. I'll give it an ID equaling to chat-log. And we'll go and close off that div as well. And that is all we'll need for our chat log to work. Now this is going to break everything. So let's go ahead and update our JavaScript now to actually append a new child element to this div every time a chat is sent. So to do this, we'll need to jump into our room.js file that we just created and make some changes here. So right now, when you send a chat right here, so on this on message, we go ahead and get the data, which is just a message that we just sent to the WebSocket. We grab our chat log right here and use the .value property on it and just add the current message to whatever's currently there. And so this creates a new row in there with the new message. But instead of this, we want to go ahead and remove this and replace this with a line that creates a new element. And we'll go ahead and create a new div. We'll add the inner text of that div to be the chat message, and we'll append that to our chat log parent div. So first we need to create an element. So we'll go ahead and use const message element. And in JavaScript, to create a new element, we can use document.createElement. This will create a new element, and in a string here, we can pass in the element tag we want to create. In this case, it is a div. Now on this message element, we can go and set the inner text equal to the data.message. And this is the same thing we used previously with the .value, but now we're going to go ahead and just put it in the inner text of this new div. I'm going to go ahead and add a class as well so I can style this later. So I'll do a message element.class name equaling a message. And then finally, we need to go ahead and append this message element as a child to the chat log parent element. And I'm going to go ahead and put this chat log variable outside this function so I can use it elsewhere as well. So up at the very top of this file, I'm going to go ahead and do a const chat log equaling to document.querySelector. And with querySelector, I can pass a string, and I can either put a dot with a class name, and this will find any elements with that class name, or in our case, we can use a pound sign and then pass in an ID, which in our case is chat log. And so this will find the element with the ID of chat log, which inside of our room.html, we set to be this div here. So now back inside of our onMessage function here, I can go ahead and use the element, the chat log dot append child to append a child to this element. And you want to go ahead and append the message element. Go ahead and save that. Now, when I come up here, reload the page here, and I send a chat, it will now show up as a new element right above here. And we'll go ahead and style this later, but at least now we can see that it is working again. Now there is one thing here though. Right now, when there's nothing there, it's just empty. And I think it would be nice to have some empty text, like some sort of empty text message that just says no messages if there's no messages. That way it's not just blank. That way the user can see there's no messages currently in that room. And this should be fairly easy to do as well. I'm going to go ahead and go to the top of this file right here. And I'm going to go ahead and add an if statement. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and put this, that's fine, we'll put it right here. So we'll do an if not chat log dot has child nodes. So this function checks to see if there's any children with our element we're calling it on. In this case, we're calling the chat log. So if this chat log has children, then we know this ran already, this onMessage function that adds a child element. But if there's not any, then we know it hasn't ran yet and there's no messages currently there. So what we can do here is we can create a const empty text to create a new element for our empty text message. So we'll go and do a document.create element. We'll pass in an h3, and then we'll go ahead and do an empty text.id equaling to empty text, and we'll use this later, so I'm going to put this here for now. And then we'll go ahead and add some inner text to this element. So empty text.inner text equals just no messages. It's going to be whatever you want, but I'm going to just put no messages for now. And then we're going to add another class to this. We can style it later as well. So empty text.class name equaling to empty text. Finally, I'm going to go ahead and append this to the chat log. So we'll do a chat log dot append child empty text. We'll go and save that. So now if there is no elements, it'll say no messages. But there is one problem. If we add a message here, it just puts this below the no messages. So we want to go ahead and check to see if this is showing. And if it is, we're going to go ahead and remove it. And so we can do that pretty easily. We'll do this inside of our onMessage function here. So we'll go below where we append the child, and we'll check for that empty text ID. So up here, we added this ID of empty text. We'll go and do another query selector, look for this. If this exists, we know this is showing and we need to remove it. So what we'll do here is we'll do an if document dot query selector, and we'll pass in a string of the # empty text. And then we'll go ahead and if this is true, then we know it's showing and we need to remove it. So we do a document dot query selector empty text to grab the element again dot remove to remove that element. Go ahead and save that. So now we come back here, reload the page. It says no messages because there are no messages currently. We add a message. It now removes our no messages text and just shows our messages here. So this is all looking great. Now all we need to do is just make this look a lot better. I already added a bunch of classes here to our, into our HTML files. So we add all these containers, these text input buttons and everything else. Let's go ahead and actually add some styles to these classes now. So instead of our static folder here, we can go ahead and create a new file. And we'll go ahead and save this as style.css. And I didn't create a base template. That might be something good to do in the future. But for now, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and just add the link tag to both of these files. So at the bottom of the head and the index.html, I'm going to create a link. And this link will have an rel equaling to style sheet. And it'll have a type equaling to text-css or /css. And then we'll go ahead and do an href equaling. And we'll put our Django syntax here again. And we'll do static. And then our style.css file we just created. I'm going to copy this line and paste it into the room.html as well. Oops, I'm going to go just copy that. and then we'll paste it in here as well. Okay, and now we can go ahead and reload the page here. And we can check in our network tab here. And it returned to 304, which should be fine for now. So that should be working okay. If it said 404, you'll need to double check that everything's set up properly and you have the correct path and that your file's in the correct place. But ours should be good. So we'll go ahead now and add some styles. So instead of our style CSS, let's go ahead and create some styles. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy into imports. These imports will be available in the repository. They're just two fonts I grabbed off of Google Fonts that I want to use. The first one is the Work Sans, and the second one is Poppins. And so I'm going to use these two in different places. You can go and just copy those in, or don't. If you don't want to use these fonts, you can pick your own. But these are two that I think work pretty well for this. Next, I'm going to go ahead and make a change to the body. I want to make this background color behind everything light gray. And so I'll go ahead and just add the body and add a style into the body, and we'll add a background color of, we'll do F5, F5, F5. And that is it for the body. Next, we'll go ahead and add some styles for our container. So this is the class we created that goes around all of our elements. I'm going to set a width of 50 viewport widths, VW, like that. And I'm going to go and add some margin. We'll add 50 pixels on the top and bottom, and we'll add auto on the left and right, and that should center the element for us. Next, we'll add some padding, and here we'll add 25 pixels on the top and bottom, and we'll add 10 pixels left and right. Next, we'll add a background color for our container, and we'll make this white. That way it sticks out from our background. So we'll add just all Fs for white, and then we'll go ahead and add a border radius on this container of 3 pixels. And I'm trying to create a kind of look of a card here, and so that's why I'm rounding the corners a little bit to give this look of a card. Next, we'll align all the elements inside of its center. So all of our elements inside of the container should be centered in the container as well. And finally, I'll add a box shadow. And this is something I usually create using some sort of tool online. So I'm just going to type it in. It's 0, 19 pixels, 38 pixels, RGBA of 0, 0, 0, 0.30. We'll put a comma and then 0, 15 px, 12 px, RGBA again. This will be 0, 0, 0, and then 0.22. So there's different tools you can use online where you can go ahead and just move these different sliders to create a different box shadow based on what you want. And that is what I usually do for these, and that's what I did for this. So you can just type this in, and it should create the shadow for you. Next, we'll go and add some styles to the heading. So this is the H3 heading on our main page. So what we want to do here is we want to use one of our fonts that we just brought in. So we'll bring in the Work Sans font. So do Work Sans. Like that. And then we'll go ahead and also increase the font size a little bit. Let's do a font size of 1.5 rim. And then down here, we'll go ahead and put some styles on our text input class. And on this one, we're going to go ahead and make it the text box that we have here. We're going to remove this focus, and we're also going to get rid of this border and make just a bottom border with some placeholder text inside. And we'll have that border darken when they click in it. So instead of having this oranges color show up here, instead I'm going to go ahead and just have a single bottom border that gets darker when they actually click on the element. So to do that, first we need to remove the border, the default border that is. So we'll do a border, we'll set that equal to none. And that should remove that border. So let's save that, come back here and refresh the page. We'll see now there's no border here. So now we can go to add a border bottom, border dash bottom, and this will be a 2px solid, and we'll give it a color of just DDD. And then we'll go ahead and give a line height of 1.2 rem, And then we'll go ahead and give it a transition between the two states of 0.3 seconds to kind of smooth the darkening of the bottom border when we add that in a second. Next, we'll add a margin bottom to this, and this will be 40 pixels. And then we'll go ahead and add a width of 50%. Next, we need to go ahead and add some styles when we actually click on the input field. And we can use this, and we can do this by typing text input and then a colon and then focus. We focus on this element. What do we want to do? We want to go ahead and set the outline to none. And that removes that default style. We'll add a border bottom of 2px solid, and the color will be 333. And this is just the same thing as this, but just with a darker border color. And next we'll add our transition as well of 0.3 seconds to smooth the transition back and forth. Next, we're going to go ahead and add some styles for a button. And for the buttons, I'd like it to be kind of like an outline button where there's no color in the center and the outline is a purple color. And then once they hover over it, it'll switch and the button will fill up with purple and the text will turn to white to kind of show up with the purple button. So we're kind of just inverting the button when we hover over it. And so to do this, I'll create a button class here, and I'll go ahead and first add a background color of just white. Next, I'll add a color, and this will be the text color. And I'm going to add a color of 9A4EF1, which is this purple color. Next, I'll add a border, and that will be 0.16 EM, and we'll do solid, and we'll add the same color again, 9A4EF1. Add a border radius of 2 EM. We'll add some padding. We'll add padding of 15 pixels top and bottom and 32 left and right. We'll align everything center. And we will add a text decoration of none. And some of these just gets rid of the default styles that we'll need to add in. We'll add a display of inline block. I'm going to scroll down here so you can see this better. I'm going to add a font size of 16 pixels and go ahead and make our cursor a pointer when we go over it. We'll add a transition again of 0.3 seconds, and finally we'll set the width of 50% to make it the same width as the input field is. And now once we hover over it, we're going to go and invert the background color and the color. And I guess the border color too. So right now the border is that purple color. We will make the whole button that purple color once we hover over it. So what we'll do is we'll come down here and we'll do a button colon hover. When we hover over this button, we're going to add a background color of the purple color, 9A4EF1. And we'll go ahead and add a color of white like that. And then finally, we'll add our transition of 0.3 seconds. Go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and check this out real quick, make sure everything looks good. And there we go. So now when we click in here, it'll make it darker. And we hover over this button, it turns it purple. And we come out, it puts it back to white and puts the outline to the purple color. So this is all looking pretty good. Next, let's add some styles for this text up here. It could look a lot better. So let's go ahead and make some changes there. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a different font on it and change the font size. So what we'll do is do an empty text class here, and this will be font family, and this will be our work sans again. And we'll set the font size to 1.5 rem. Go ahead and check that real quick. And that looks a lot better. Okay, and now let's go ahead and add some classes for our message. So we type a message here. Right now, it doesn't look that great either. Let's go ahead and make some changes here. Now, later on, we're going to add users. And so we'll be able to tell which user is sending the chat. But for now, we don't have that functionality added. So I'm just going ahead and make some blue bubbles that will show up here on the left side of the screen. And then once we have users, we'll go ahead and differentiate them and put some on the left, some on the right based on who's sending and who's receiving the messages. But for now, since we don't have that, they're all going to be just blue buttons on the left side of the screen for now. So we'll create a message class here, and we'll go ahead and do a background color of 71AEEB, which is this blue color. And then it's kind of like a light blue, I guess. And we'll add the color, so a text color of white. And then we'll go ahead and add a width of 25%. And we'll add some padding all around on all sides of 8 pixels. We'll add a border radius of the same of our button, which is 2EM. And then we'll go ahead and add a margin of 15 pixels top and bottom and 0 pixels left and right. And finally, we'll use our Poppins font for these messages. So we'll do a font family, and we'll put in quotes Poppins, and then that at the end. Let me go ahead and save that. Let's come back here now and reload the page, and let's add a message. And there we go. So now we have a message showing up here and this blue bubble looking thing on the left hand side of the screen. And we can come back later and add profile pictures or whatever else we add later. But for now, this is looking fine as it is for now. And that's all looking pretty good. Now, there is one more thing I'd like to add. There's no way to really go back to the previous page to go to a different room unless you hit the back button or change the actual URL. And it would be nice to be able to do that with just a button up here. So let's go and add that button real quick. So back inside of our Sublime text editor, let's go to our room.html and let's add a leave room button. So this will be at the very top of our body, outside of all the div containers. And we'll go ahead and create an anchor tag with a class of leave button. And then we'll go ahead and add href equaling to our Django URL. And this will be URL and in quotes we'll put index, which is what we defined last time in our urls.py. We have this URL pattern called index. And then inside of the text of this, I'm going to close off there and put in the text for this button or for this link, it'll be leave room. Save that. Now let's go back into our CSS style sheet and add some styles for this leave room button. So we called it leave button, so we'll do .leave button. And we'll go ahead and add some styles here. So this will be similar to our send button that we created here, but I want to make it red instead of this purple. So we'll make a few changes there. Other than that, they'll be pretty much the same. So we'll add a background color, and we'll put the background color this time of F5, F5, F5 to match the background of the body. We'll add a border color, and this will be a red color. So it's going to be an A0404. Add a color. This will also be the same color, AA0404. Next, we'll add a border, and this border will be 0.16 EM solid, and then we'll do the same red color, AA0404. Next, we'll add a border radius, once again, of 2 EM. And then we'll go ahead and add a color, or we're going to have color, we're going to do that again. We'll go ahead and add some padding, and this will be 15 pixels left, top and bottom, and 32 left and right. Go ahead and once again align everything center. This is pretty much the same from our previous button. We'll do a text decoration of none. We'll go ahead and put the display to inline block. We'll add a font size of 16 pixels. And we'll go ahead and set our cursor to be a pointer. We'll set a transition of 0.3 seconds. And we'll set a width, and this will be 200 pixels. and we'll set a margin of 20 pixels. And next we'll go and add some styles when we hover over the button. So once again, we'll invert the colors like we did for our other button. And so we'll go ahead and set the background color to be the red color. So that's AA0404. We'll add a color of the text to be just white. And we'll add a transition again of 0.3 seconds. Let's save that. Let's come back here and let's go ahead and see how this looks. So you have this leave room button. We click on it. It takes us back here. And that works well, but it looks like we have an issue here with our index page. So let's double check that real quick. So it looks like I never put the class of container on this div here. This should have a class of container right there. And that fixed that right there. So now it looks a lot better. So now we click in here. We can add any room name, whatever we want. It'll take us here. It says no messages. If we were to add a message, that goes away and adds all our messages right there. And that is all we wanted to do today in this video. So now at least we have an application that looks a lot better. I guess now that I think about it, I should probably change this font as well. Let's go ahead and make sure we do that real quick. And it looks like it should be adding that. It should be adding that font here. Let's double check, make sure we put our class in there correctly. So we go into our style CSS, find our heading, and it looks like I put font weight instead of font family. Let's fix that real quick. Save that. Now let's come back here and reload that page. And there we go. That makes that font a lot better. Okay, so that's all we need to do in this video. Now we have an application that looks a lot better than it did before. And now we can actually work on building some other functionality, maybe adding users or adding a way to save messages to a database or whatever else we could think of. We can add that now. Now we have a better looking application. So that is it for this video. I'll put the links to everything in the description below, as well as a link to the written tutorial. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.